But,
the last thing I was going to cover just before we did a few super chats was everyone's favorite actress in the Marvel universe, Brie Larson.
yes.
The Marvels wasn't the greatest success ever, and so people have started to ask, like, well, what's her future in the MCU? What's Captain Marvel going to do next? And so they straight up asked her at the SAG Awards.
Marvel. That's quite good. Just knowing which is which. Can you tell us a little bit about Marvel and what's coming up for you, your next Marvel project? I don't have anything to say about that.
Bit of a development from the other time, right, where she said, I don't know, does anyone want me to carry it on?
Kind of, yeah. Because I don't think it's a case that Marvel's done with her. I think it's more that she's done with them. And I don't blame her in the slightest. If I was her, I'd want to get out of Marvel and just not have to play this character anymore. Clearly, it's not working.
I think similarly with Sony and Marvel, it's about realizing who has more leverage. And I think Brie Larson is like, you know what? I feel like I don't need you. I think you need me more than I need you right now. And you consider the fact that she did the YouTube thing for like a year, right?
Yeah.
Very,
lockdowns,
very clearly contractually.
Didn't take any of our advice, by the way.
Oh, who could, that wasn't even going to happen, of course. I think that the whole thing was obviously like, you got to do this to get a better image between, Captain Marvel appearances, and that she probably agreed to it like contractually because it's like, well, it's a huge opportunity. I think Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man gave everybody the wrong impression as actors of what the potential of the MCU was going to provide them. And it's only now that they're all starting to realize and probably getting told. Recently, we had that quote from Ray Winston, right? Talking about how it was a miserable experience being a part of the MCU. It was
soul destroying, apparently, yeah. And I think it's funny as well because he was asked to tone down his performance as Dreykov. Like, really? Yeah. That was toned down?
Dreykov was a fucking cartoon, like, of a character, and apparently that was the toned down vision, which, to be honest with you, would have made the film better if you let him loose. Ray Winston's fun. But I don't know.
I had the clip for reference if you want to see the clip.
Oh yeah, let's have a look.
Yeah. Hopefully I got my sound turned on here. We're gonna catch the last part of this. And it's really, you got to see this in context.
And what's true.
Can you hear it?
Yeah.
But then of course there are times when nervousness means that you're just sort of like, this is not the right thing for me. Very quickly, Marvel. Just knowing which is which. Can you tell us a little bit about Marvel and what's coming up for you, your next Marvel project? I don't have anything to say about that.
Boom, right to credits.
She just shut that one down immediately.
Shut it down.
I mean, it could be that she's under NDA or something, but I feel like she would have been a bit more positive about it. Like, hey, we're working on stuff, but I can't tell you anything right now. It just seemed more like, I just don't want to talk about that bullshit anymore. I want to
in like
out of my life.
5 years or whatever, she comes out hyper against Marvel, says it was crap to work with them and that she never wants to be there again. I feel like she's going to rise in the ranks of favor with us in terms of like, she's kind of fun.
So. I have to say that
I got more respect for her already after that.
Her
interviewer who
alone,
yeah.
Well, I mean, I can't imagine, whether you like the first Captain Marvel or not. To be honest, I thought it was okay. I as a sci-fi B movie, whatever. But the thing is, it made $1 billion. I know it was between Infinity War and Endgame, but you're an Oscar-winning actress. And you made $1 billion for the studio. And in your second movie, which could have been The Road Warrior, it could have been Godfather 2, it could have been The Empire Strikes Back, you have two characters from a TV show that you have to share the screen with? I mean, in Hollywood history, this is not how sequels work. Yeah. And I understand what they were trying to do, but they should have, they could have done anything. You knew that during the 5 years that Thanos had snapped away half the universe, that she was having a hard time dealing with what was going on a cosmic level. You could have done some epic story about her trying to quell a civil war in space, or you could have done anything. But instead, you had to make this goofy, basically, the Marvels is a sitcom. I mean, you've literally got Flurkins running around eating people to save them from a spaceship that's coming apart. I watched that movie and I thought to myself, this is what you're following up a $1 billion franchise film with? And you're saddling Brie Larson, who's won an Academy Award for Best Actress, with this? I mean, I thought that it was ill-conceived from the very beginning. And I can't understand, of all the things that Marvel has done, I do not understand why you would follow up a science fiction film. I mean, you have the Kree Skrull War. that you could have done. You could have
They
gone into the
completely
Nova Corps.
skipped.
You could have gone
Yes.
into Annihilation. You could have gone into introduced the Shi'ar Empire. You could have done anything, and they gave us a sitcom.
They did,
It
but
all
actually,
smacks
the other
of
thing
it.
about that film is that it makes more sense. The MCU makes more sense if you just pretend that the Marvels doesn't exist, precisely because of how much it skips and how little it actually does. I mean, the film resolves everything it introduces within its own course, with the exception of stuff that it accidentally mentions, like the collapse of the Kree Empire, which doesn't really make sense when you look at everything around it, because it gets no mention in, say, Guardians of the Galaxy. It doesn't accord with Secret Invasion, which is another one that's probably better ignored. But I think to the answer to the question as to why you would follow up Captain Marvel with the Marvels, it's just because that Captain Marvel as a character was not there because they had a story to tell with Captain Marvel. Even in the 2019 one, she was there at that point because they thought, well, we know roughly speaking who's going to be dying at the end of Endgame, and we want someone to take over the role of mantle from Tony Stark to lead the next generation of the MCU, and we want that to be a woman. So we'll have Captain Marvel, and she can be that person, and we'll just throw her in, irrespective of how that actually works with the rest of the story, which it doesn't particularly well. And now they've got to the point where they pick up the pieces and they say, well, what have we actually got to do with this character? And it turns out there's nothing. So they just do this sitcom thing, which is as irrelevant as it can possibly be.
Yeah,
I was gobsmacked. I do not understand what they were trying to accomplish with that, because they had the potential to take a character that was middling at best, that people didn't like, and they could have given that character look, every character is one great movie or one great story away from being restored. We've seen it in comic books all the time. A moribund comic has a great creative team that suddenly comes on and turns it into a huge best-selling comic and does a definitive run on it. You know, Frank Miller on Daredevil, for instance. That could have happened to Captain Marvel, but oh no.
I think it always gave the impression of a film that nobody wanted to make. Like, I just got the feeling that the writers didn't want to tell the story. They just cobbled together whatever came to mind. None of the actors particularly looked like they wanted to be there. The direction was apathetic at best. It just felt like a project that nobody was passionate about, and it was made out of obligation. And like you say, it's a shame because they must have known what was riding on that. A really spectacular second movie might have redeemed the character to some extent and made her
you
popular.
could have done interesting things that we haven't seen yet. You know, the Marvel's cosmic characters are deep. There's a deep bench of interesting characters they haven't even touched on.
No, they're a joke now, Robert, because they've gone so far into comedy with it. Like you couldn't do an Annihilation. Annihilation's like high stakes sci-fi. It's freaking brilliant. It's probably one of the best crossovers they've ever done. There's no way you can do it. Well, because most of the characters are missing or wrong, and so just read the comic. It's better.
But yeah, I'd imagine, like, from a career point of view, I think probably Brie sees the MCU as the worst thing that she ever did. Like, she already had a fairly successful career as far as I understand it. She'd already won an Oscar. She'd done a mixture of, dramas and interesting independent movies and, bigger blockbusters like Kong Skull Island and stuff. Like, so there was a fairly solid base as an actress to build on. And then she took this role and it just killed her momentum because all these interviews started coming out, people took a dislike to her, and that is a tough thing to get over, as any actor probably knows.
I mean, she was in a movie called Short Term 12 that I loved. I thought it was a terrific independent film, and how she wound up in that, I don't know. And she was the lead in a TV series in last year called Lessons in Chemistry that I don't think many people watch, but she was quite good in it.
Yeah,
it was quite a good show.
But I almost feel like if Captain Marvel hadn't happened and she hadn't done all that stuff publicly, then
I know.
Perhaps Lessons in Chemistry would have been a lot more successful. People would have given it more of a shot.
Yeah, they would have.